What's going on, guys? Avery, aka Romer the Roamer. I'm here with Dan Meadors, who has sold, I always screw this up, I'm gonna say 33 million so far.
It's somewhere in that ballpark, man. It's
Okay.
I know it's north of 30 million, and it goes up every day. So,
And is that just wholesale, or is that selling books as well? When you first started out, are you including those first few thousand sales of book sales?
oh yeah, that's definitely that's our Amazon sales in general for sure.
Okay.
Like now, outside of Amazon, we've also sold a whole host of stuff too. But just on Amazon, we've sold more than $30 million in goodies.
Yeah. And he was talking about, he's a businessman. He does all different types of ventures, but he started years ago. How many years ago was it? 7, 8 years ago?
No, we started in 2011. Like, which at this point feels ancient, right? Like when you start thinking of it's like dog years whenever you're talking about e-commerce.
High school. My face is just like filled with pimples.
Oh my goodness. That makes me feel even older.
My definition of making money was scooping my neighbor's dog poop out of their yard. That was literally, and I thought it was a great idea. Like these kids nowadays are like 17 years old and they're making hundreds of thousands. It literally blows my mind how much opportunity there is out there.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The book hustle is certainly stronger than the dog poop hustle, right?
Yeah. I wish I would have known about that back then. I wish I would have known about selling books, selling on Amazon. I don't know if I would be interested in it back then because I wasn't too interested. All I cared about was wrestling, things like that. But now that I'm interested in making money, I look back at that time and I'm like, wow, if I would have known back then, I'd be a monster now. But you started selling books and also retail arbitrage, which anyone that doesn't know what retail arbitrage is, it's where you go to retail stores, you purchase items like markers, anything on clearance, and you sell them on Amazon. So you purchase them at a discounted price, you sell them on Amazon, and that's great. My roommate does it. He makes a ton of money. His name's Taylor, and he'll spend, sometimes $10,000 a month going out to these stores. The problem with it is you have to go out to stores and you have to leave your house. So the reason why I wanted to bring you on is to inspire people, because a lot of people, they don't have that much time. They're stuck working a job and, they might be able to go out and source books. A lot of my audience sells books. I've sold over 1.5 million in books and I've helped a lot of people do the same. But a lot of people, they just want to be able to work while they're at work, maybe, on the computer, and they want to be able to establish a stream of income that is, I want to say, replenishable and consistent. And that's what you did. You started out with the hustle of this, but then pretty quickly you went into wholesale and transitioned from this retail arbitrage book model where you had to go into places, and you grew a business where you're able to establish relationships directly with brand owners. And instead of going into Walmart and purchasing this on clearance, you purchase it directly from the brand owner now. And instead of purchasing 5 that happen to be in stock that day, you can purchase 5,000. And that makes this business model scalable. And people are doing this all over. I brought one of your students on to my show a few months ago, Melanie, and she was a book seller that started out doing 10,000. And I think she got up to 10,000 mark. Maybe she didn't even hit the 10,000 mark per month in book sales. And now she's doing 30,000 a month wholesale because she wasn't able to go to all the thrift stores. She was tired of hustling, driving around, using gas, time, all that. And so she transitioned to the model that you teach very well. By the way, I know I'm talking a lot right now, but there is a free training that Dan will be doing all the talking. He is the expert on this. So if you guys want to sign up for that free training, the link is below, and he will be breaking down exactly how he built a wholesale business and his unique strategy on really providing value for the brands. And, you're going to get questions like, are you an Amazon seller? Are you, why should I work with you? And he literally has like the exact blueprint on how to deal with that when you reach out to the brands. So even if you don't have a website, even if you, don't have like an official business, even like an LLC, I don't know. Do you need an LLC?
To sell wholesale, you do. Yeah.
Okay. I take that back. In books, you don't need an LLC. But even if you just start minimal without like a whole big brand, a lot of people think you need a warehouse. Dan doesn't even have a warehouse. He had a warehouse, but then he went back and literally this whole thing of you talking about not having a warehouse changed my perspective on business. You and Dylan both. They don't believe in warehouses anymore. They pay $1 for each of their units, about $1 per unit, to be prepped by other fulfillment centers. And that has changed the whole way I operate my business. Like literally like last week, I probably sold, I don't know how many units, but 10,000 plus. Imagine if I would have prepped those all myself. That would be, that'd be a lot of work.
Anyway, it makes a world of difference.
welcome, Dan. And if you want to talk a little bit about how you made that transition and why it made sense for you. I think that's the longest intro I've ever done.
No. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the kind words, and it's just like it was a longer intro. It's been a long journey, and kind of a journey where I've got to see a whole lot of different ways and modes of selling products online. Like you said, I got started kind of in the retail arbitrage zone, and was definitely leveraging a lot of book selling. And so whenever we get started, I got started with a $600 credit card, just going around and kind of shopping around at Walmarts and stuff like that. And it was easy to run out of money, right? Like, with $600, it was easy. So like I would go buy my things and I would have maybe like $75 left or whatever. And I would go to the bookstore because at a bookstore or at a Goodwill or whatever, like $75 goes a long way. Like you can get a whole lot of goodies there at for $75 or whatever. So like every time we would get kind of close to the wire or down to that last 10 or 15% of budget, like we would go book shopping. And it was just kind of like the margins were humongous. So like I didn't care how long the thing set. Like I would just buy stuff and kind of let it matriculate out as we went along. But ultimately, like for us, that's the way we used it. Is like almost like a margin builder. And a way to kind of cushion everything else. And between doing that and retail arbitrage, like, kind of that strategy right there, like we ultimately kind of built that foundation. And when I say foundation, I mostly just mean the capital to really get started with wholesale. And it was kind of funny. Like, I remember this specifically. I remember, whenever I was getting started with wholesale, like I probably waited I would say like a year longer than I should have, because of I had always heard that it was incredibly expensive to get into it, right? Like they required these gigantic orders and stuff like that, and I was just like, we don't have the money to do anything like that, so we just kept doing our thing. But I had looked into it sooner and kind of like dove in, I would have probably ultimately made that shift sooner. And
right.
When I talk, when I why ultimately did I want to make the shift to wholesale? And, you can make a lot of money, man. We did $1 million a year, almost $1 million a year doing retail arbitrage and book selling. And, just going in and buying stuff off the shelves and selling it on Amazon, and had great margins, but it was a ton of work. Like, this, like, going around, you was telling me, before the show, you'd been doing some retail arbitrage recently and stuff. And it's like, it's a lot of work. Like, and I had, at the time, I had like 2 small kids too. And I was just away from my kids so much because like we would be out shopping, 3, 4, 5 days a week. We'd come back, we would process the stuff and just kind of go do it again and rinse and repeat over and over and over. And it's like, even though we were making good money and working for ourselves, like it wasn't, past the enjoyment of like, just being out there and having fun on your own. Like it wasn't all I'd hoped it would be, like to own a business, right? Like when you think about owning a business, it's not exactly what I had dreamed of at the time.
More of a hustle. And
exactly. That's the best way to put it. It felt like I was in the middle of a big hustle.
Yeah. And you can make a lot of money doing it. Like, speaking of the retail arbitrage, last week I spent a lot of money, and I flew people all over the country because, I've been in business long enough to know that if you want to build a business that can operate in your absence, the only way to do that is to get other people to do things for you. So my roommate told me about this hot product, and I flew people to California, Dallas, Texas, literally, and like, every hour of the day I was texting somebody. I was like, should I buy this? Should I not buy this? And I was like sending money, Venmoing. I even got trained my assistant to do it. So like, I feel like I'm at the next level of business where I was like able to do this like larger operation, but it was still such a hustle. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to put more time and effort, like all this time and effort that I'm putting into retail arbitrage right now. I need to shift this and bring it to wholesale. Even if the margins are a little bit slimmer, the cool thing, and this for all the booksellers out there, booksellers know that if you put $1 into inventory, it might not come back for 6 months, but it's going to come back to you probably at least $2. that's good margins for books, But with other products like headphones, I always have these headphones near me. I use them as an example. I actually bought these to sell on Amazon, but I never ended up selling them because I ended up using them instead. But products like this sell really, really fast. So the difference between books and even retail arbitrage and wholesale, fast. Books, slow. So know that if you spend $1,000 on other items, that money's going to come back to you within 45 days, would you say? 45 days about?
Oh, for sure. Like that's our, that in wholesale, you kind of hit the nail on the head. And that was our experience too, is that like, you get in this hustle, you make really good margins, but you have to look at it for what it is. Like you did all that work. You realized like once you sell those goods, like it's over, right? You have to do it all again or kind of repeat that process to be able to make more money. And ultimately that was where we saw ourselves. Is like, I'm kind of always going to be doing this no matter what. Like after I sell my product and make my margin, I have to go find my next product to sell. And with wholesale, that's not really how it works, right? Like you spend a lot of effort also. It's certainly not easy to just do it, but like you spend a lot of effort, you create relationships with the brand. But once I have that relationship, like I can consistently reorder that product. So like while, my margin may be smaller, like I can realize that margin time after time after time. And that's where ultimately you create that scale in your business. Like it's hard to be that dude on the phone texting for the next hot product and then learning to find the new next hot product to go send the people after.
You got to be like in the community, and you have to have, the only reason why I was able to do that is because I had friends who knew about the products. Like I was kind of lucky to stumble across that, but it was still so much work.
Yeah. No, it's exactly right. It's rewarding work, but it is a lot of work. And ultimately what we were trying to do whenever we got started with wholesale is we wanted, that same kind of reward, but we wanted to be able to realize it over and over and over and kind of build our business off that. And, to give you an idea, like I actually just had, it's kind of funny, I was supposed to have this meeting with you, or I was supposed to have this chat with Avery yesterday. And, I was like, oh man, I'm just getting back from New York. I actually had like one of the most awesome weeks ever. I took my kids, like we were at the beach, and then ultimately we went to New York and just hung out. And it's like, I didn't even pick up my phone a single time, like not once, literally not a single time for work. And I never did. And what happened? Like my business grew. Like the whole time I was gone, my business grew. And it was because like, not only was I, was my business, we weren't out there like, just finding like the next thing we were going to sell. Like we were continuing on the business that we had already built, and our team with systems and processes. Like everything you can do in wholesale is systems and processes oriented. So like once you have it set up, it's like the business just operates. And I was able to just kind of go have fun and completely relax without any worry that anything would go wrong.
Right. And speaking of the systems and processes, I think a lot of people take FBA for granted. It's been a buzzword for the last, 10 years, maybe longer.
Oh yeah.
And, but recently in the book world, we just got screwed pretty hard. I don't know if restock limits have affected your business too much.
I mean, it's the effect is pretty minimal because like, with wholesale items, whenever we buy a product, like that product, like you said, generally sells within most of the time within 30 days. Like our average turn rate during a year is about 43 days. And that means like, all the inventory we buy, we sell on average.
And Amazon loves that. Amazon likes it when you send them items and they sell fast.
Right.
That's so what makes Bezos happy.
Exactly. So like whenever, these inventory limits go in place, it's like we are the products that we're sending in just have a great turnover rate. So it's like, we build up those inventory limits really, really fast and it just kind of rolls in. But like I had heard this, I don't have a lot of experience right now, with books right now, but like I had heard this was pretty tough on booksellers.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bring this up because I know some booksellers are listening, and I just want to talk about like what happened in the book world and how it affected these booksellers. So basically bulk booksellers who had like 10,000, 15,000 units, For anyone that doesn't know what the restock limits are, Amazon said you can only send in X number of units. You still have unlimited storage, but you can only send in 9,000 units. So people with 13,000 got cut down to 9,000, and they keep cutting them down more and more. But what I noticed is wholesalers I've talked to and retail arbitrage people, anybody who is selling items that sell fast, and basically anything other than books, the restock limits aren't an issue. And I sell a lot of textbooks, and it's not an issue with my textbook account. My textbook account usually has about double space. So if I have 3,000 units in stock, they'll let me have 6,000. My roommate had 1,000 units in stock of, can't say the product right now because he's still selling it, but it was a product that it's a seasonal product, summer product that people use. And Amazon limited him at 10,000 units, which is 10 times the amount of space. So, and to go back to my point of FBA, I think a lot of people took FBA for granted. We have all these booksellers who would go out, they would find books and they would ship them to Amazon. And anyone that doesn't know what FBA is, who's listening, it's basically you take a product like a book or whatever, and you ship it to Amazon, and Amazon will label the product. They'll shelve it for you. And then when the product sells on their website, they'll actually pack it in a box, ship it to the customer. If the customer complains about the product, Amazon takes responsibility for it for the most part. And they'll also handle returns, customer service. They literally do everything. Speaking of systems, Dan, you were just talking about the systems that, run your business. Amazon literally built all the systems for like literally 90% of systems for Amazon sellers. Now, once you get to scale, if you want the warehouse, you can go the warehouse route. You don't even have a warehouse, but you can create systems in your business, and that's ultimately your responsibility. And this is what I tell Amazon sellers, no matter who they are, private label guys, drop shipping guys, reselling guys like me, and then wholesalers, is if you want to build a business that is sustainable, you need to focus on the systems of getting product time and time again. That is the most important system, because Amazon did the rest for us, and we are spoiled rotten to have Amazon FBA, and booksellers are kind of feeling it now that, Amazon doesn't like them to have a lot of bad books in stock. But wholesalers aren't feeling that too much because Amazon values these faster selling products, generally higher priced products. And you're also providing value to Amazon because you're connecting the manufacturer or a distributor with Amazon when they didn't have that relationship before. So I bring that up just to warn people about bulk books. Books are still great. Books still make a lot of money. But Amazon FBA, we are blessed to have it. And for the first time in the last 10 years, people are finally feeling the pressure of not having this luxury of Amazon shipping everything for you, of Amazon handling customer service. So just know that if you guys decide to learn from Dan and do wholesale, that is not an issue for you because your items sell so fast. And the money you spend comes back to you within 6 weeks. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that as well. I know it hasn't affected your world too much, but that just really made me value FBA so much. I'm like, wow, like all these systems, because you keep talking about the systems, and it's like people get freaked out when I say systems. They think like, I have to learn how to do everything. I'm like, no, with FBA, it's all handled for you.
Right. No, I mean, we've always utilized FBA. Like since we started our business, and the logic behind utilizing FBA was it allows us to create scale when we otherwise couldn't, right? Like I can't multiply myself and ship more orders and things like that. So I was always able to just send more inventory to FBA and let it grow. In terms of the bookseller thing, it definitely changes. It definitely changes how I used to do books, right? Like when I did books, like I kind of did exactly what you said. Like I found great deals on stuff, got it really cheap, and would just send it kind of like a whole bunch of stuff, and would wait until it sold. Like I didn't have any expectation that it was going to sell tomorrow or the next day. And it's like, with the inventory limits, like I hadn't really talked to directly to a bookseller, but I can see how it's kind of putting a squeeze on. Like it definitely, they are trying to force that constriction on the time frame that product sets in their inventory or sits in their warehouse. And that's always like from Amazon's perspective, it's always a restriction for them, right? Like they always have space issues, and you just can't build more warehouses to warehouse more products.
Exactly. They've grown 50% this year. Amazon has skyrocketed. Like last year, I don't know if they doubled last year, but I know their stock went from, what was it, the beginning of 2020, like 1,000 something, and towards
it was crazy. Like their growth last year, I remember reading something about it, and it was like 40% in their like revenue growth.
60% this year in 2021.
Oh, like
just in 2021. So Amazon, the opportunity of selling on Amazon it's still there. People are like, should I still sell on Amazon? Is there too much competition? And the opportunity is absolutely still there. It's I don't know if it's going to go away. Like, I don't know if, 10 years from now, we'll look at this is like the golden age to get in, or if the golden era was maybe 10 years ago. I don't know when exactly that is. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm always of the opinion, and I can firmly say that it's been true since I've been selling on Amazon. And, when was the best time to get in on Amazon was like yesterday. Mm-hmm. And, when's the next best time? And it's literally today. And that's been true every day every day since I've been selling on Amazon. It's been true. And it's like, we were talking about it earlier. It's kind of like dog years, right? Like e-commerce is like dog years. And you want to think out 10 years. Do I think Amazon, like the opportunity to sell on Amazon will exist in 10 years? Yeah, it'll be different than the opportunity is now.
Right.
But the point is like, Amazon has such a huge market share, and they ultimately have the infrastructure available to let people like me and you to leverage that. So it's like, as long as I can find a way to plug into that system successfully, like Amazon will always present a way for people to make money. And, like whenever you think about like the way that, that growth, like that massive 40, 60, whatever, gigantic, crazy growth, right? Like whenever that happens, like more, number one, more products are selling on Amazon. That means more products are in their warehouses. And that means they have to make changes to create those. Like, you can't throw up a warehouse in a week. Like the demand for warehouses right now exceeds their ability to build them.
Exactly.
Like, effectively. So like, to curtail that, and ultimately Amazon does this a lot, right? Like they kind of break new ground. Something happens and they change something. So it's like with restock limits, it's like now that those sales went up and that people are trying to get in more inventory, they need space to be at a premium. So they're requiring the products that come in to sell faster, like get off my shelves kind of thing, so we can sell more things. And ultimately that's, you're seeing that as a change versus kind of like that longer tail mentality.
Right.
So I don't think it'll change. Like, ultimately, I don't think that will mean books. Like you said, I don't think book sales ever becomes bad because the margin is so good. But like, it does change it, and then ultimately it will change it. But we've seen this for years. Like, we've been watching this for years, because bear in mind, like, I made the jump to wholesale in 2014. Like, I've been doing wholesale a really long time at this point. And every year we see these types of things that just favors it, right? Like, it just favors wholesale. And what is it? And it's like a few years ago, it was the category restrictions. Like, category restrictions, originally, Amazon was the Wild West. You could just sell whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted. And then category restrictions became a thing. And it's like, what do they require? It's wholesale invoices. Why? Because it authenticates your product. Yeah. And it's the same kind of mentality as like, it's like, every time Amazon kind of tightens the reins, what they're looking for is they're looking for more evidence that your product's real. And whenever you work in our model, I'm not going to say it was planned like this, but we've been, recipients of just incredible fortune from Amazon. And it's just because like our model lends itself to the things that Amazon works for. It's like, we love liquidity in our inventory, because I believe that cash flow, like in a wholesale-based business, cash flow is protection, right? And I don't want to have inventory that I'm just hoping to sell, because like, inventory values can change. Like, we always want our product to be like right at the market value and selling and moving, so we can make more purchases and kind of just realize margin as we're going along. Same concept. Like, that's what Amazon's looking for as well. They're looking for products that come into their warehouses and ship to customers, and those customers to have great experiences. So it's like, we've just been the recipients of a lot of that fortune. But I think that this is like that point where, people who are are already selling, right? Like, if you're selling on Amazon, you're doing books, you're doing you're doing retail arbitrage. Like I look at these types of situations and I remember, like why did I get in wholesale in the first place? And it was like, number one, because it was a lot of work. And number two, because we started seeing things like category restrictions. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, the writing's kind of on the wall here, right? Like my business model is going to change and I kind of need to change with it. And I think this is one of those situations too, like where, if you're in that model, it's like, I want to look at another way to create. And it's like, don't give up, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you do want to look for another way or another thing that you can add to your business to kind of add that layer of insulation or protection. Right. And for us, it's always been that wholesale is the best option for that.
Exactly. I think a lot of people look at you saying all that and selling 30 million in the last, how many years?
Well, that 30 million is over the course of 10 years, but it's
over the course of 10 years. I mean, that's still insane. Like to sell 30 million in over 30 years, even a million a year is impressive. But to be able to,
like 90% of that's probably, I would say about 90% of that's in the past 5 years. Like it's, it's certainly
going up. So people look at you and they're like, obviously brands want to work with you because you have sales experience on Amazon. You've sold millions. What advice would you have to the beginner who's not sure if wholesale is for them? Like, how much money do they need to get started? Who is this for? What skill sets do you need? And really, like, what is like the first step? Because I know you're going to cover sourcing in depth and how to set up relationships with brands on the webinar, right? That's really the focus of the webinar, which, by the way, if you guys sign up, the link is below. Dan will be doing that live, and he's always provided massive value. These webinars are amazing. I like them for a few reasons, but I really like them because they inspire you. Not only do they teach you, but they also inspire you and I'm going to ask you later about some of your successful students. I was scrolling through the website the other day and I saw someone sold their business for $500,000. We can talk about that in a second, but what would you say like are the key attributes or characteristics, financial situations somebody should be in order to even consider wholesale?
For sure. To get started with wholesale, like I told you originally when I got started, I probably gave it an extra year because I didn't do any research. And I wish that I had asked the question that you're asking now, because I would have made a whole lot more money, honestly, just getting started a year earlier.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think you can get started with wholesale for $2,000. And that's, that because there's a couple of things. It's like, with wholesale, you don't have a lot of extra cost. Like everything I spend is basically on inventory. So I don't have like a lot of, with this particular business, there aren't a whole lot of cost related. Right. It's like I outsource my fulfillment of product, like to both third-party fulfillment centers and Amazon. It's like I don't have a warehouse. I don't have to pay employees. I don't have to do these things, that incur traditional costs. So I can get started much lower. And what we found is over the course of years, whenever we're sitting here talking to wholesalers, is the most common minimum order, and you'll often hear that as a term in wholesale, is minimum order or minimum order quantity, is $250 to $500. And it's like I remember just imagining like these numbers, would be $10,000 or $20,000, but 90% of the wholesalers that you call are going to have a minimum order between $250 and $500. And with starting with a budget of $2,000, like that gives you the opportunity to place 4 to 8 minimum orders and kind of get a good breadth of experience with several different vendors.
Right.
But you'd mentioned you'd mentioned that a lot of folks would look at us and say like, hey, you guys have done a whole lot of sales and stuff like that. Why would they ever work with me, right? And it's always it's kind of funny because whenever we're talking to brands, one of the things that we teach and that we're going to be teaching on the webinar there is how can you strategically build a relationship, right? And that's really where it starts. Is our focus isn't on wowing a potential client with our sales numbers and stuff like that. It's always with an introduction and focusing on how we can possibly help them. And I know a lot of the folks are thinking like, Avery, like how can I possibly help them, right? Like, but it's, that's what we're going to be showing on that webinar, is how you can look at an Amazon listing and how you can see those kind of small details that a vendor wouldn't see and use that to start and leverage a conversation and develop a really cool relationship. Like you'd mentioned that you talked about one of our students who had sold his business for $500,000. And that particular story, I think, kind of lends itself really well to the people who don't have a lot of confidence and thinking that they're new. The guy that you're talking about has an incredible story. Like his name's Emmerich Manello. He moved to the United States, and I think maybe 2011 is what he said. And whenever he got started, he got started selling on Amazon using our course. Like he that was his kind of like first big foray into selling. And it was kind of funny because he didn't actually speak great English at the time. Like his English, he moved here from France, and his story is really funny because I was talking to him, and for the first few months that he moved here, he played poker professionally. Like he went to casinos and just played poker. And he said, like, he didn't even know how to order food. Like he said, like he didn't know what the food was. So he would have to like look it up and stuff like that. And he ordered the same thing for weeks until he like kind of found something else that he liked and whatever. But so like, when he got started with wholesale, he didn't have a whole lot of confidence that he could, number one, talk to a vendor, period. Like he didn't know a lot about Amazon, and he didn't speak great English. But a lot of what we teach is like kind of identifying those key little details, right? About how you can help. And that's what he did. He started, instead of trying to sell somebody, he went and he had a conversation about how he could help them using the strategy that we talked about. He landed an account. He took that account. And this is where, like just putting in work can pay off huge, right? And he decided like, hey, now that I got this awesome account, like I'm going to do my best to grow it. So, whenever he first started with that brand, they were doing about $160,000 a year on Amazon. And, I think he said it was 13 months. He had them doing 1.4 million or 1.5 million in sales. So it's like massive growth, right? Like he took this brand on a massive growth trend, and ultimately was able to leverage that and kind of like into a longer term contract, and then sold his business for $500,000 and has done consulting on Amazon. So a guy went from literally no Amazon experience to selling a business 13 months later, and having a killer amount of Amazon experience.
Right. And so in terms of the value that he's bringing the brand, what exactly is he doing that the brand can't do themselves? Is it complicated stuff? I know you guys advocate doing what's called PPC, which is drawing traffic to listings. Like, what are the nuts and bolts of what you should understand if you truly do want to be successful like that student and be able to build a brand or help a brand make a lot of money?
The first thing we teach is diagnosis, right? Like, how can I diagnose a problem? Because that's where it starts. Is like, it starts with helping a problem. It starts with helping a problem. So it's you just getting good at looking at Amazon listings, and like if you want to get better the fastest. But it's like, once you get good at that, like understanding what's wrong with a product, like then it's kind of easy to plug in those solutions. And whenever he started, and even us, like we still outsource a lot. Like I still outsource to a graphics design agency. So like whenever I see a product and it has bad pictures, for example, and that's one of the things we teach is like how to identify that kind of stuff: bad pictures, ineffective pictures, ineffective copy, like where they're not using PPC, like you mentioned, like all those kinds of little things like that. But it's like when I see those things, I know that's a point I can talk about to a brand, right? I can bring that up and I can show them a clear example of what a better listing would look like and why that listing is better. And that creates that case. And then if they say yes, like, hey, let's say that they're like, all right, Avery, you've convinced me, man. Like you've convinced me. I do want to work with you. And it's like, oh my God, now what do I do, right? And it's, you just go find a graphics design agency to do the graphics you wanted, right? Now, you're right there in it. You've got a profitable product you're selling. You're an approved seller, and that's really where it starts. That's what it's, So again, I don't think there's like, I wouldn't tell people to go out there and learn arbitrary skills on Amazon. Like for us, it's about learning kind of what's wrong with a brand or a product, and then
learn as you go. Like learn as it's needed. So know the problem exists, but then when it comes to learning things like PPC, wait until you actually have to deliver on it and then learn it. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Like know that a problem, know how to identify that a problem exists, know how to identify where you could find a solution, and that's enough for me, right?
Yeah, I found that like a common principle in business is don't expend resources on learning things that aren't necessary in the moment.
There's
So,
not enough
and,
time in
and
the
you're not going
day.
to know everything. Like in any business, you're not going to know everything starting out. You know, you can think you can try and plan and learn what you think you should know, and it might not even be what you really need to know. You
That's
know,
where I think, honestly, that's where I think having, and I can say that, with Emmerich and with a lot of our students and with us, honestly, we leverage our community too.
yeah,
Is like whenever you see these situations and they pop up, like knowing that there is a solution and knowing, you have somebody there, a mentor or
yes,
something like that, that can like help point you in the right direction is enough. Because like as a business owner, like anybody out here scrapping it up and like making money with books or making money like beating the streets, getting out there and getting their hands dirty with retail arbitrage, like they've got the courage, right? Like they're out there buying and selling, they're out there doing work. It's like, so it's, for me, it's just kind of taking that one step further and realizing that, you're resourceful, right? Like at the end of the day, like if you sell somebody on you need better graphics, like you're resourceful enough to go find graphics. Like, come on. And, so it's that kind of mentality. So I agree with you. You gotta, a lot of it's just about taking the action more than
exactly,
anything.
yeah, that makes sense. In terms of actually purchasing the product, what is like a good average price to purchase it? What should we expect to sell the product for? We already went over we should sell product through 45 days, but how do we know, because what you're going to do is look at like a catalog or look at the products. Actually, you have an interesting technique to go on Amazon first, find the product, then contact the brand. It's called reverse sourcing. Would you be covering that in the?
Exactly. No, I mean that's the thing. That's exactly it, right? Is whenever you purchase something, you want to know ultimately that you're not just going to sit there with something
Right.
that doesn't sell. And that's what we really teach is how to identify those kind of core opportunities, right? Like identify a product that kind of fits that guideline of what's going to sell. And basically we're looking for products that have a good sales volume, products that aren't sold by Amazon specifically, and products that products where we can products where we can honestly make a difference. Like that's a key component too. Is it for me is I like to look at products where I can make a difference. But sells well. It's not sold by Amazon. And there's another thing. Like you'd mentioned, what kind of price product should we be looking for? And for us, it's like I like whenever I'm starting out with wholesale or something like that. Like I think you should look for products above $20 because it kind of has that margin in there, right? Like it's got enough of that margin that between the Amazon fees and the sale price to give you the ability to make some money in there. Now that being said, like, when we sell products like at $5, like once you kind of learn how to utilize Amazon logistics and stuff like that, your range of products goes up and you're able to carry more things than you used to. But like realistically, as a kind of a good starting point, look for products that are above $20 that sell well and aren't sold by Amazon, and you'll do pretty dang good. Like, but on that webinar, that's what we're going to be showing is we're going to be going over like how to find those products. Like saying that, kind of like rattling it off there, it sounds really easy. It's like, oh yeah, of course, Dan, I can find things that aren't sold by Amazon, sell well, and
You guys have
are
the
above $20.
checklist. I really like your 4-point checklist. It makes it easy. It's don't purchase it unless it meets these 4 points. And then when you get good enough, you can violate it. But starting out,
exactly,
follow this 4-point checklist. And I really like that. And you'll be covering all of that kind of beginner stuff on what to look out for, what tools you use to be able to find these things in the free training, which below, guys, click that link and sign up 100% free. It's going to be live. Is there going to be a Q&A at the end?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that we love to do. Anytime we're doing like a webinar like that, it's not one of those kind of like stiff presentations of stuff. It's pretty interactive. We love to do Q&A, and it's because I think that's kind of that difference in and concept and understanding, right? Is being able to ask the questions you have. So absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. I think that's about it for now. I think we should leave all the details on how to exactly find the sources for the webinar. But do you have any last words for the people who are scared to take action, who have been learning about Amazon? Because a lot of my audience is, they're either selling books, kudos to them, or they've been thinking about selling on Amazon for, the last year. What advice would you have for somebody like that?
I mean, like, I think all the traditional advice is like, hey, get started. But really, it's, just come to that way. Honestly, I would say come to that webinar and see if, if you're still in that phase of, you've not found something that makes sense. Maybe you haven't found something that makes sense.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to them,
Right, exactly.
Like drop shipping, private label, like it just might not click for them.
Right. And to those folks, I would say come to the webinar I'm going to be doing with Avery, and we're going to be covering something that might actually be that for you. Because, for me, if I today, if I were to watch a webinar about how to go out there and make money in stores, I'm not sure that's something I would be wanting to do. Like to be honest, in the current climate. So maybe this is more along your lines. And it is. I can say that if with wholesale, if it is something that clicks for you, it's something that can turn into an incredible business, because we've realized that, we've watched it happen over the past few years for us and for tons of students. So, I love everything about wholesale and the opportunity that it creates. And I just love sharing that with people. So
awesome.
Please show up to my webinar.
Awesome. Yeah. Look forward to it. And thanks for your time, Dan. And you're a great teacher. I love listening to you speak, and, you put together these presentations very well, especially for, a Kentucky boy, good old Kentucky boy from, where is it? Corbin, Kentucky?
Corbin. Yeah. Corbin, Williamsburg. I live just south of Corbin, but
yeah. I think that's why a lot of people love listening to you, because they don't expect all this knowledge to be dropped. And then all of a sudden you see it step by step and see you doing big things. I think it inspires a lot of people.
No, I appreciate it, man. It's always fun doing these kinds of things, and I love being able to help folks. So hopefully a whole bunch of people will make it out there.
Sign up for the training below, guys. Thank you, Dan.
Awesome. Thanks, man.